from the Printerverse at Graph Expo, and we're here today to talk about Unsquaring the Wheel. This book was written by RIT Professor Chris Bondi, industry consultant Wayne Peterson, and our very own What They Think Dr. Joe Webb, who's here. And it's been described as the print operating system book for the future. What's really exciting about this book, though, is that here at Graph Expo, the authors partnered with HP to produce the book in a very special way. And we're going to talk about how the book was produced. We're going to talk a little bit about the content first, and then we're going to talk about how the book was produced. And then we're going to hear from the printing company, Webcom, who actually produced the book. So we'll have a very exciting panel here, and hopefully some of the folks in our live audience will have questions to ask. So Dr. Joe, you've written several books. This is one of many.
Yes.
But what prompted you to write this book in the first place?
Oh, this started with a meeting at a cross-media event at RIT in 2012 where I happened to be at the same cocktail table. I don't drink. Having the same cocktail table with Wayne Peterson and Chris Bondi. And we were talking about the nature of the business, how it was changing, and how the industry needed a new business model. And over the next series of months, our discussions led to the idea of having a book and creating a process to help companies reposition their businesses in the marketplace and also change the nature of their operations. But in our consulting practice, our individual consulting practice, we had never worked together before. We each came to the same conclusions that printers had a bad reputation for not wanting to change. Printers actually did want to change, but they never could figure out how to start, what to do, how to prioritize it, how much emphasis to place on it. So we continued to work on this process, and we came up with a business assessment program that divided the nature of the printing business into 3 major areas and 9 sub-areas. And each of us took a piece of that. Wayne took all of the customer-facing aspects of it, which were business development, customer experience, and other aspects of marketing. Chris took the technology side, the process side, and the workflow part. I got the leftovers. I got people, finance, and alliances. And the alliances part was something really quite different because we see the nature of change and the nature of skills in order that are necessary to produce media products today and in the future being very different and requiring different alliances with outside providers because of the limitations on capital formation and the nature of risk of being in the printing business. So all of these things came together, and we developed this particular book. And we had some beta tests of our approach, which were extremely well received. And our long-term plan always involved the production of this book in some kind of digital process. We wanted the flexibility as we developed our curricula and other subject matter to keep it updated on a regular basis, but also to be able to divide it into sections that could be used in workshops and seminars. So the traditional static book printing process was never really a part of our planning and never a part of our expectations. This was always going to be a digitally produced book. Being a startup where we are now a nonprofit corporation called Unsquaring the Wheel, and money is, until we engage in fundraising and underwriting and those kinds of aspects of the process. Inventory is something that we have to be very careful of. And as we're developing content and also developing funding for our products, we want to take the digitally printed materials and adapt them to video. And with some of the technology that HP has provided in this particular version, we're starting to see some really interesting opportunities that we can have to tie in the video training and the online training that we're hoping to develop as part of the new entity to tie it all together. So that's how we got involved with the book, and also the idea of always using some kind of digital printing process for it.
That's great, and one of the reasons that it made a lot of sense to partner with HP was because of a new application that HP had developed called OneBook, and Tom Bowman, who's the product manager at HP for workflow, is going to chat with us a little bit about what that means. And OneBook, to me, I mean, we've heard of Book of One or OneBook for a while. You can print one book because we have the technology, but you've added some extra dimensions to the book. So talk to us about that.
You're spot on there. So part of the focus is what you would call Book of One. The standard, every copy comes in, every order comes in, it's a single copy. You do one after another and that kind of a model. So we produced workflow solutions that can produce that kind of a model for you. We also see this as an opportunity to create a different form of Book of One. What we're able to do, and the key word earlier was digital, is we can add digital content to these kinds of books. So by adding custom content, so we've added some inserts into this book that describe some of our technology that are unique to this version. We're able to create unique IDs. So if I scan with a link reader this barcode on the back, I can verify that this is not a counterfeit copy. It's real. I can track it. I can add some things to it. That makes it a one book. It's unique. I can link to the internet. So again, for educational purposes, I can take it to external videos, contents, user manuals, whatever kinds of content.
And Tom, just to interrupt for a minute, so explain what link reader is, because the audience may not know.
Certainly. Link technology is a technology that we have at HP that allows you to put a watermark on any image or portion of a printed material. This cover is watermarked. It's a scattered amount of pixels that a reader can look at, but the eye does not notice it. So obviously you can see that this was marked, but it's not obvious. Or you can do other kinds of secure barcodes or other things as well. The linked reader itself is an application for a phone or a tablet that you can get from the Google store or from the Android stores for your phone that lets you then scan these codes and read it and get to this extra content.
So it could be video, or it could take you to a web page, or it could do any number of things.
Exactly. So from a retail point, it could be an instant coupon. You are the winner of something, maybe some reviews or things about the products being looked at, or for educational purposes, other kinds of expanded materials to go with it.
Great. So on with OneBook. Okay, so we have with us also, we're very pleased to have with us somebody who actually is using this stuff. It's one thing to hear the vendors and the consultants talk about it, right? But Michael Corbett from Webcom is going to talk to us about actually producing this book. And it was, I don't think you got a huge lead time on this.
No long lead time for sure to be able to go ahead and produce the book. We went ahead and leveraged the HP OneBook technology to allow us to go ahead and produce the book. We can go ahead and use that workflow not only to produce a book of one, so one single book along the way, but this particular one was extremely interesting because it ends up being a book of one with variable content. So as Tom was talking about, it has a variable insert, so it's personalized to the individual, which makes it really ultimately a book of one, and the only technology that allows you to go ahead and do that is digital. So we leverage not only the workflow for HP, but we also leverage the hardware associated with it, and we ran this on a T300 WebPress inkjet that allowed us to go ahead and produce the book block, the pages, the text inside, as well as using HP Indigo to run the cover, and again, fully variable through the product, which made it out to be a one-book solution. So the most challenging part of the production, other than the short time frame,
He looked at you for that.
No,
the immediate necessary tomorrow sort of solution, was making sure that as we went through the operation, we were keeping everything together. So the cover and the inside text had to make sure it matches up. So if Dr. Joe's book ends up with the incorrect cover, that would be a problem. So we wanted to make sure that obviously that didn't happen, and to be able to manage that through the operation. And the book, OneBook solution really helped us make sure that we kept all the components together and deliver the book.
So talk to me a little bit about what that means. So obviously you're printing the covers on the Indigos over here, and you're printing the book blocks over here, and then talk us through the process of marrying those two and how the software infrastructure helped.
So the software infrastructure really allows us to go ahead and produces barcodes that has covers on the cover as well as on the text, which are unique. And then we're able to go, when we go through the binding process, to make sure that those particular barcodes, both one on the cover and one on the text book block, marry up. And we're able to go ahead and run that through the workflow. The other advantage of the one book is also allows us to do recoveries. So if we have where we damage a cover or a book block during the binding process, we're able to go back and rerun those particular components and finish off the books perfectly.
And you know, aside from HP as a customer, are you seeing a demand for this among your publisher customers?
Our publishing customers are extremely excited. So what they're seeing this is an opportunity for them to be able to go and look at delivering to their customers single books, filling into different parts of the supply chain, but they're extremely excited. We're actually have to keep them held back a little bit because we're able to produce at an industrial scale using the T300 one books, which they haven't had access to in the past.
That's great. You know, and it's always interesting to me because way back in 1990, you know, when the Docutech came out, we started talking about the ability to do Book of One or books on demand, and it's taken many, many years, but actually it's starting to really happen now, right?
Yeah, I think Book of One was able to be produced in a sheet-fed type of model for some period of time, but this really takes it to the high velocity, high web, high speed, and allows us again to do that one book solution, but in an industrial fashion. So it's no longer, you know, speed is definitely a factor because again we have to make sure we're delivering the books on time. So we wanted to make sure that as we ran through the process, we had an industrial strength solution to be able to give to our customers.
That would give them the quality they need too.
And
right?
absolutely, quality is a given.
And we also have Mark Johnson and Chris Chevaria with us from HP. And Chris, you and I did a little brainstorming about this project ahead of time. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts about incorporating video into a book.
So as was mentioned already, what we wanted to make sure was that not only do you have the ability to do one book, but now you also have the ability to do a personalization. So brainstorming with my boss, David Murphy, we said, well, what is the best way to do it? Everyone's probably gotten a book at some point in time with their name in it. That's nice, on the cover possibly, or maybe on the insert page. Well, what if we take it to the next step? Because we discussed the link technology, and I think Mark's going to be demoing here. Let me move this out of the way here to show how Link works. The Link technology developed in San Diego by HP, so we built it in-house, allows you now to connect the Internet of Things to print. So in addition to the 100 personalized books that we were able to offer customers, anyone who went online to do that, they will now have a personalized video by David Murphy that will address you by name. So that's the opportunity. We actually have books for people who maybe didn't have a chance to sign up online because there's only 100. You can imagine everyone going through and doing 100 videos. It wasn't necessarily not time consuming. It was a little time consuming, but that was okay. But that's what personalization, you're getting to know your customers. But we have books up here then for anyone who would like to have a book, and we still address you and say, thank you for coming to Graph Expo. It's a time and point right now that you can get these books, and we can link it with a video as well.
And you've got them in the HP booth, and the authors are there at certain times to sign them. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Mark, you want to explain it, down the little demo there?
Well, I went through it a little bit while Chris was talking. So the whole concept of this, of our whole Link reader, is to take books to that next level, right? We've talked about virtual reality with books before. What Link Reader does is very seamlessly lets you link in, as we said, video, web, external content, and that content doesn't have to be generic. It can be down to the individual recipient. That's what's kind of different with Link Reader, is the ability to get that down to the recipient, not just this is a video for this book, but it's a video for you, the reader of this book.
And-
So
and-
that's kind of breakthrough.
And the other thing is, once they click on that link, you know about it, don't you?
Now
It's
I've
like
got
Big
now I've got
Brother.
tracking. Well, we don't. It's as Big Brother as you want to set up the system. I know anybody who goes to our website from this book that you got this book from this show, which is great. I don't know who you are. We haven't gotten that personal yet. If you want to sign up on my website, though, then I do know who you are, and then I can track you from that point.
But
Thank
on
you
the
very much.
what about on the personalized ones?
I don't think we're tracking that.
But you could. I mean,
Yeah,
you
right.
could. It's like a giant direct mail thing, right?
That is the concept. Yes.
And so, Michael, do you think that your customers are going to want to integrate video and do that kind of thing?
Well, a lot of Webcom's customers are in the education market. So textbooks are a natural way to go ahead and introduce different content online. So that type of technology will really help our customers to be able to go ahead and have a degree of personalization, but also able to drive particular content associated with it. The other thing that, again, from a customer perspective that helps us is the security that can be built into this type of thing. When you look at textbooks and textbook publishing, it can really help a customer make sure that they're receiving value for the product that they're producing.
And I could imagine that there'd be lots of applications for this on signage, for example, in a retail operation, or any other number of printed materials that you can now make interactive.
If you actually swing by our booth, you'll see a big QR code on one of the walls that will take you to how to download Link Reader. And absolutely, signage is an application. We actually played around with this 2 Drupas ago, where any HP sign in the booth you could trigger an action from.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. And Tom, sort of looking ahead from a development or research and development process, I know you can't tell us everything, but can you give us some hints about where you think all of this might go? The combination of the ability to do one book and to make that book interactive.
Yeah, there's a combination of where these things are going is because really we talked a lot about the value adds and things that can go on, and those can be applied to anything. Like I said, signage, packages, there's a number of different places. So there's a lot of places where that can have some advantages in it. But the one book also is a production workflow. So from web to print to organized, seamless production planning, tracking tools and everything, to finishing and everything, it can take you to single books in a production environment, which has a lot of applications. Book of one shouldn't be scary because it is just a quantity. So book of one is the same as book of 2, a book of 100, book of 1,000. The workflow can handle it down to the extremes of it.
But it's also part of Print OS, right? So you want to talk maybe a little bit about the umbrella of Print OS?
Yeah, there's actually a couple different things. So we've had SmartStream for a while as server-based solutions and everything, but we're moving to the cloud with Print OS. So now the new model is, instead of buying a server, maintaining it every 5 years or something, buying a new one and keep it going, now we can go to a software as a service model. So the site flow application within Print OS is what Webcom is using here, provides that production tracking and organization from a cloud system. So they don't have to manage the hardware anymore and the upgrades and those kinds of things. They're all managed in the cloud for them.
And Dr. Joe, sorry. Dr. Joe. So that concept, which is really bigger than printing a book, but it's the whole automation of the process and so on, and cloud-based and whatever. Is that addressed in this whole unsquaring the wheel thing?
Well, one of the key points that we make is knowing how to explore new technologies. But also in terms of the way we look at this, we're looking at offering Unsquaring the Wheel as generic workshops in the industry, but also inside individual companies. So what this might allow us to do in particular sections of the book, rather than linking to some generic site that might have background on financial management, we could link to a site that goes to the financial management as presented to this company. So there's tremendous opportunities there. We just have to know how to manage our content properly, and always be on the lookout for ways to create new content that we can tie in here. But in terms of evaluating technology, we cover many of these issues from all 9 of the aspects of the company that we discuss, because every technology investment affects the overall workflow concepts, the platforms, the customer interfaces, the kinds of alliances that you create. These are not the kinds of decisions that you make, and it's just one small aspect that doesn't affect everything else. Everything is linked together. So we have some tremendous opportunities in evaluating technology that we discuss in here, and they're all different for almost every company. Not every company is the same. That's one of our points in this, and that's what fits in so well with the whole digital printing concept, since not every company is the same, nor should the content that they get be the same.
One of the things I wanted to point out when you were talking about that, think about this from an educational publisher's perspective, the ability for a professor, Dr. Joe, or for you to be able to customize the content of a book for a particular class, for a quarter, for a semester, for a school, for a company. So the ability to pick and choose which chapters to include in that particular seminar of books, you'd never be able to do that without this type of technology, both the printing and the workflow behind it. So that would just be too cumbersome. A lot of professors would, copy things on copiers and do it in a binder, but that's not really professional. And you couldn't sell that to a corporate client. But doing this gives you the ability for that high-level, really customized book feel, and also to be able to track it and keep it secure.
So for that poli-sci class that starts in February or January, we can actually print the book on demand depending on how the election turns out, right?
But even more practical than that.
Change the color of the cover.
Unsquaring is going to become a graduate course at RIT. That's Professor Bondi's plan.
And I heard Clemson was interested too, yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah.
I like that. So when you change this book for a class, you're going to want to add new content for study guides and the like. It would be very easy to, prior to the semester beginning, to identify whether it's an undergraduate class or a graduate class and what the background is of the students. So using this in a graphic design school would be different than using it in a printing school. And we would have great flexibility in providing to professors and others in the class to create the book with the modules that they want, and also automatically link to all the other content that they want.
So I want to just take a minute and see if there are any questions from our audience here, our live audience. I'm getting a signal here, I'm not quite sure.
While we're getting there, I was going to add one comment that one of the things we can do in the book that Link Reader has done is if you remember taking tests with your number 2 pencil and filling in all the circles, we've been able to scan those and do the scores off of them too. So you could actually put some of the tests into the print as well.
Yeah.
Nancy has a question about the downloading of readers. The QR code on the front and one on the back. She wants to know if you're getting people to download the readers, and do they need different ones, or is it all the same?
So the question is about downloading the reader to read the magic invisible mark here. Do the QR codes get you to the reader? Or?
So if I can, I'll take that,
Okay.
if that's okay, over the thunder here. This is a thunderous presentation. So we actually have, in the inside, we give some instructions. So we have a title page. For people who wanted to have an inscription, we have actually an inscription that you can do as well, which for people who wanted to personalize it. Otherwise, our founders, Hewlett and Packard, there's a nice inscription from them. And on this page, then we have the instructions how to download from the Google or the Android store. And with that one download, and the Apple Store, sorry, and I don't have Apple. Then you have
Either, so thank you.
with the one link reader is all you need. So what we've actually done inside this book is on the cover is what we're calling a covert watermark, meaning you're not going to see it. So it's inside the page, and in the dots, the inkjet dot, or the technology dots, the digital drops that have fallen on here, they're inserted in here. On the other pages, you'll find a QR code, so that's, a lot of people are familiar with QR codes, so you'll see the QR codes in the bottom corner.
And the one app does all of them.
And the one app does all of them. And then the one on the back, which is the security that Mark mentioned, also does that.
Second, is all you getting people to
So are people actually downloading the readers? Yes, actually we are having people come and do that. I think it's because it's exciting. We've got two different videos that we've done personalized, how the book was made on the cover, and then the one on the inside from David Murphy, and then we've got other links to other videos as well. So people want to see what the content looks like. What are some of the capabilities?
Let's add a few more things about that. The link reader, in addition to reading our codes, it also just reads QR codes and does what they tell it to do. So it also does serve as a generic QR reader. Love that to be the standard for everybody. But in addition to that, other companies can incorporate our technology into their apps. So if there are brands or retailers or other folks who want to incorporate link reader, we have programs for them to bring that into their tool set as well.
It also has some roots in counterfeit detection and things like
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, that was going to be, I was going to ask you that question because you've got this for packaging. It sounds like, are you finding interest in this in the world of packaging, having people be able to, A, give people more information about their product, and B, make sure they're not counterfeit?
Absolutely. Last time I went into a Costco, I was met with a group of television boxes. so really the packaging becomes the advertising. It becomes the storefront. And in a lot of these stores, there's not a lot of help, salespeople and everything. With this kind of technology, somebody could scan it, they could get the specs for what's inside, they can get testimonials, they can get the manual, they can get installation instructions. There's a plethora of things that could be linked to in the retail space.
Any other questions from the audience? Richard. Can you repeat the question?
I believe the question from Richard was that is there a proofing process that needs to be engaged with as well? Is that right?
She did the proofing process. I'm having her answer.
So interesting enough, because we had our technology that was being done in San Diego by the HP group, and it was so sweet because Irina, who is part of Michael's team, she sent me a text message saying, it's not working, and then I said, okay, my team just gave me the notice that it is working, and she scanned the book and it was ready to go. It's because it's downloaded out there into the sphere, if you will, right out to the cloud. It can be hosted, for example, like in an Amazon type location as well. So that's how we proofed it, if you will. Like I said, it was printed, there was nothing, but then when it was engaged, that's how it began. So.
And Michael, those adding that element for you didn't. I mean, if you're printing a book like for HP and they've already got all the background work done, but adding that element for you doesn't make any difference, right? Other than being able to match the right cover with the right book.
Yeah, that goes without saying. In terms of being able to utilize the link technology, it's invisible. So all it really is a couple extra droplets of inkjet going onto a page. So for our from a manufacturing perspective, it makes no difference whether we use the technology or we don't, because it's not visible to the human eye. It's just a little extra ink.
And as a printing company, do you see this as a service you could sell?
I think this would be an opportunity for us to sell the service to a lot of different customers. It really allows multimedia. It becomes the tip of the iceberg to be able to bring all the Internet of Things together, and it really is quite exciting for us to be part of it. This is where it's relatively new to the book industry, but it's moving in that direction where we're able to leverage the digital technologies to really be multi-channel for our customers.
That's great. Any other questions from the audience? Okay.
The first question you kind of touched upon. The printers at home were wondering, is this something they could monetize? And if so, how do they make money from it? And if not, or is one of the options to partner with somebody? And again, how do they monetize that?
Well, we haven't gone through and monetized it as of yet, but in terms of offering that particular service, it's definitely something from an unsquaring the wheel perspective, if we wanted to get into video production and into different areas from a printing perspective, really becoming multimedia, it's a possibility that's a service that we could offer to our customers to help them support them in terms of their content and the delivery of that content.
So you could monetize it by helping them create content, and you could monetize it maybe on some kind of click model based on results.
And you can measure it.
Yeah.
So it's really a return on investment that you're able to see the number of downloads, the number of clicks, and you're able to personalize it. So there's different ways to go ahead and allow our customers to leverage that technology.
That's great. And was there another question, Deb?
I was going to add to monetize that also is because you are taking this to websites, so you get into the world of normal e-commerce at that point if you're steering people to where they can buy other products or get more information.
Now explain that a little further.
Say, for example, unsquaring the wheel here, I can look at it and say, well, boy, I want to look and see if Dr. Joe has some other books on there. It could take me to a storefront that lets me go to Unflattening the Earth or something like that, or some other some other book that's in there.
Yeah, one of those you might also like. You bought this, you might also like that, right?
Tom mentioned about this ability to take tests, the bubble tests. Think about it as an author or as a publisher, the ability to have that one-to-one communication with your reader, to have the reader come back and give you feedback, not just through Twitter, but actually, while reading the book, you could ask them questions, do you agree or disagree? Do you rate this on a 1 through 5? All sorts of things you could do as an author to have a dialogue.
Well, on the textbook side, if you're in control of the creation of the test, and you see that a large percentage of people are getting a certain subject wrong, that part of the textbook has to be rewritten or recreated.
Yeah, that's a great point. You had another question from the audience?
Okay. So our smaller publishers are pretty excited about this technology. However, we've got some large publishers, printers, and distributors who think that disrupting long static runs, that they're going to have trouble selling this kind of work. They're not really set up for that. So how can they prepare themselves for this trend?
May I go?
This is from the publisher's perspective, right?
Right.
The publisher.
From the publisher's perspective, and notice how well the publishing business has been doing over these last 5, 7, 10 years. Well, you've got to. This is a perfect opportunity to create a skunkworks and create a business that caters to this kind of operation. It's a different workflow. It's a different mindset in terms of your marketing and a mindset in terms of your production. And it doesn't fit in the model. And so you've got to work on a different model. Don't force it. If it's not going to fit in the model, you're going to do it badly. So this is the time for innovation inside organizations, because these are new channels, new content, new workflows, and that's telling you something. Because if it doesn't fit in the old model, it tells you probably more about the old model than it does what the new one is. Because this is what data has done to so many products, not just publishing. I mean, this is a pattern that's playing itself over and over again. So my comment to that publisher is to really take a step back, start thinking about what you might want to divest in 5 or 10 years to be able to really start investing in this kind of new workflow.
I guess the first question I would have for that publisher is what percentage of your work right now is coming, of the stuff that you're doing is coming back as returns? Who pays for that? Who pays for the inventory? And are you looking for a way to cut back on some of those downsides of doing longer runs? And I think, Michael, that's your world.
Just by doing the shorter runs, they've been able to reduce the waste. I mean, it's not very long ago that you had 40% waste in the supply chain. I think it's down to about 35 now, but boy, it's got a long way to go.
With some of the streamlined automation, too, the turnarounds can be extremely quick on short runs. So people just order exactly what they need, and it gets turned around very quickly.
So here at Webcom, we really see ourselves in a lot of ways as being a supply chain management partner more than a printer for our publishing customers. So we look at different ways to improve their supply chain so that they're able to get to market at the right time with the right cost, and make sure that they're able to get in front of the customers. The other important thing is this technology allows the publisher to interact with their end clients and really be able to add value and extra content to that whole discussion and the dialogue, as you said. So publishers are changing, and they're looking at their supply chain and in a different way, and looking for ways to innovate. And the same as what we're doing as the The printer, we see ourselves more as a supply chain management company that's able to help deliver one book or thousands of books or whatever it happens to be from a publishing perspective on what they need us to do to help them make sure that they're getting that in front of the customer and that the customer is getting extreme delight from it.
I always, anytime anybody says the word book, what's the first thing that comes to my mind is Amazon, right? And I'm just wondering from your perspective, how much of a disruptive force do you think Amazon was in getting publishers to kind of wake up and say, hey, we got to do something different?
Well, it's huge, right? It's in any discussions with publishers, it's usually the elephant that's in the room is the thing that we never talk about. But it's something that they have to be aware of. And the exciting thing, I was just talking about it with a couple colleagues over lunch, is the exciting thing is that you can dial into the Amazon flow, and ultimately it increases the overall size of the market. So it allows more books to be produced, although you're producing maybe not, more titles, more flow, but publishers are challenged with making sure that they're feeding into that particular channel, and so they need to make sure that they have partners that are able to feed into that particular channel and continue to grow their business.
And part of the Amazon thing is obviously their whole supply chain and logistics management and whatever they're doing on print on demand or the inventory management. But the other part of it is their own imprints. I'm sure the publishers didn't like seeing that happen.
No, and they see that as competition in some ways, that Amazon can compete with them within that supply chain, so they get squeezed a little more. But so this gives them other options. The one book solution gives publishers other options rather than just necessarily going to Amazon, so that they can continue to live in a symbiotic way where Amazon exists as it normally does, but the publishers are able to exist in that same ecosystem, and everyone ends up being able to grow that particular part of the business.
That's great. And Sandy, do we have any other questions from?
Yeah, we did. Oh, yeah. We wanted to know, can you switch out digital content in the book? Or do you have to keep reprinting it?
Can you switch out the digital content in the book without having to change the barcodes or the invisible watermark? Yes.
The content in the book or the content it links to?
No, the content it links to. The content it links to.
So basically, there is an app, the Link Creative Studio, where you get the watermarks or the codes down, the unique codes from it. Once you have that, you put it through a normal composition tool, and it's in your files. It becomes part of a variable data job at that point. That stays the same. You can relink that to different content anytime after that. So I'll go back to the retail example. If you wanted to use that for a specific offering or a coupon at this time, next month you can change it to something else without touching the printed product.
Okay. Another question from our at-home audience?
We try to interpret it.
While we're waiting for that, oh, she's got it? Okay.
Okay, I think I know what they're asking. They were wondering about the workflow challenge of matching the components. So we talked about the web creating the guts, and how, if there is waste or a mistake or something on the fly, how is that all handled?
Talk about the finishing. So talk about how you're back that whole.
So in terms of going ahead and making sure, I talked a bit about the barcoding when it comes to the point of binding, to make sure that you're getting the cover and the contents, the text book block associated with it. But we also, using the one book technology, we're actually able to do closed loop. So if we wanted to go ahead and do a closed loop model, if we have a damage on the floor, we're able to go ahead and recognize using the site flow system that particular book for that particular individual is damaged during the run. It goes ahead and we'll go back and continue on to go ahead and print that text and that cover and recreate it so that it falls into that workflow. We also have the versatility to have an open loop system as well that could push it to a smaller device if we didn't want to run it on our industrial inkjet printer as well. So it really gives us a high degree of flexibility to make recoveries happen, because if something happens on the floor that disrupts this chain, we're able to go ahead and recreate it using the workflow that's been provided through OneBook.
That's great. I don't know if Mark or Tom has anything to add to that.
Yeah, part of what I was thinking too is in the software itself, the site flow that was mentioned, the individual components of the jobs are tracked separately too. So there's a track for the cover that gets tracked along the way, and it's unique steps to produce that. The book block itself gets tracked, and they all get tracked when they come together. And you can even have other things included in that aren't print. So if it's a college book, maybe you're also shipping a mug for the university or something, or a cap or something else that goes along with it. So there's a little bit it can expand into the manufacturing of all components as they come together as one shippable unit.
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question?
I have a
Okay.
question.
You're not allowed.
I'm thinking in terms of a nefarious publisher. You could actually sell a book at one price, since you know which book it is, and then you can have them activate the book and all the external content for another price. And then as a college textbook publisher, which are not always held in high regard, you could actually turn a book on for a semester, and then the next semester in the used book market charge a fee for turning the content on again. Students and parents, I'm sorry I brought this up.
Do we have any other questions from the audience here? There's one in the back. Yeah. Are you sure?
This is service. Okay, on the retail end of this, how does your process work with copyright and ISBN numbers for dynamic content versioning that changes?
Here's the question. If you link to certain copyrighted material, is there a necessity about, let me know if I'm getting this wrong. Is there a necessity to license certain material so that you can link to it?
Do you have to have a new ISBN number?
Oh, okay. So which versions of the book get a certain ISBN number, which don't, and all that? You have to manage that. Yes. 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 You guys already have that worked out. You have an iPhone app for that, don't you?
That's a good question. I think we have to figure that little piece out. Oh, and then Mr. Zwang is in the audience with the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can get different ISBN numbers, and then depending what people order, that's what you print out. So that's.
So any other questions from our audience here? You guys are kind of quiet.
It cost me a couple $100, didn't it?
Okay.
They were very confused about your answer. They just want to know how they can make money from it. And if someone suggested that they go into the video business, because they kind of got a little bit.
All right. So how you can make money from it? I mean, is it a fixed price thing? Is it a value-added pricing thing? How do you sell it to a customer? I don't know if you want to try that, Michael.
There's layers of monetization, right? So I think what Michael was talking about was this technology gives him the ability to branch out into additional service offerings. That's one layer. The whole idea of I'm going to sell you this ability to link things with Link Reader, that's a monetization. That's a product you can sell. We will license you the Link Reader Studio, and you can do that. There's also e-commerce that Tom talked about, where you can take the book as a product and it becomes a brochure for more products. So the publisher gets some monetization from e-commerce. So there's lots of different spikes on that wheel of how to monetize.
Yes.
Yeah,
We like
in-app
in-book
purchases. Yeah.
But the idea of somebody getting upset about being told to get into video, this.
That, and also they don't understand that there's click charges, because they're used to like QR codes and stuff, and every time someone scans it, there's a
Oh, does the Link Reader have click charges?
Don't know.
Basically per code.
So it's say it in the microphone.
No, there's basically a won't call it a click, but a charge for each unique code that they provide.
Per code.
It's a per code, not per use.
That's a big
Per
deal.
code, not per use. And you know what's interesting, I think, about HP's strategy on this is you've tried to make this a completely open system. It's not HP Link Reader, it's Link Reader, and to make it a little more ubiquitous. And it's much more attractive than a QR code, right? I mean, we love QR codes, but they aren't.
Well, no, we
that
love to
attractive.
hate QR codes, though, and for that very reason, because the click charges. We heard that loud and clear.
Yeah,
Right.
no click charge. It's just to buy the one code.
Yeah, I'll add that there's a variety of codes that are available too. Besides the standard QR code, there are some secure codes that can't be copied and reused also. So there's some secure features included as well. So there's a variety of applications that can apply to.
Okay, so I think we're.
The only was did someone suggest that printers go into video?
Some have.
I'll do that. Oh, did you have?
Yeah, Michael, let's hear what you have to say about that. Should
If you
printers
want
go
more
into the
time to
video
think, I
business? You're a printer.
Oh, tells me to go ahead. Okay.
Getting into the video business.
Okay. Well, not today. But you may have an alliance with a video producer of some kind because you don't have necessarily the competence on staff to do it, but you can have an alliance or even make an investment with a company that knows how to work with print. I had a very interesting conversation last week. I was at one of the marketing association local chapters, and I was sitting next to a creative director at a digital media agency, and they said, you know, gosh, I've been trained in video my entire life, and we have a great business because everything's turning to video. We got video online, we're doing broadcast, we're doing cable, and we're doing really neat things for mobile. And what shocked me was he says, print intimidates me. And the reason print intimidates him was that print had to be locked down before you went forward, and it was locked forward for good. And you couldn't go back, you couldn't tweak, whatever. But the more I've talked to people who are involved in video, the more they're interested in integrating different kinds of media. They have an interest in doing that more than comes from the print side. So you don't have to get into video, but you should start having alliances and knowledge about the different businesses that are in video, because it invades everything, and the mobile device is the gateway to all kinds of different media. And this is one of the reasons why the production of this book fits into that kind of environment.
And the other thing I'm hearing from people who buy print who aren't necessarily with a title of print buyer anymore, they really don't like the siloed nature of their supplier base. They want somebody who can do the whole thing under one roof. So if you're a printer and you're not thinking about adding some of these other things, they might turn to somebody who has all those things. I mean, you know, it's a reality in today's world. They don't want the silos.
I was just going to comment, this is really like any content providing tool, like the internet, other print. You know, you have to have ownership of the content, so you have to worry about whether there's copyrights or things involved in it. The content has to be there, has to be created in a number of manners. So it's just a different form of the content creation. It doesn't have to be elaborate. I can link it to something as simple as my website, a user manual, you know, in any kind of video. It doesn't have to be anything exotic or anything. It just depends on what kind of content you want to provide for it.
You know, I bought something recently, I forgot what it was, some piece of electronic, and it had no manual, it just had a QR code. Snap this, you'll get your user manual. You know, so they're not, I mean, it's not even a CD anymore, right?
I was going to say, you click it and a teenager came.
Yeah, a teenager comes to help me install it.
The one I've had recently is installation instructions for a yard barn. It came in a box with a bunch of stuff, but the same kind of thing as you could scan it and get the instruction. You can kind of see what you're into before you buy it, too.
Yeah. So this is last call for any questions from here or from our audience at home. Okay, and meanwhile, anybody want to add some closing comments? Mark, you want to start with some closing comments?
Thank you guys so much for joining us either online in the studio, in the audience. Especially a huge warm thank you to our three authors. I mean, the ability to have the whole supply chain up here and talk about this, how freaking cool is that? So guys, thank you, printer, thank you, Michael, thank you, authors, and it's been a pleasure. And by the way, thank you, Chris, because Chris took this on as one of her first projects joining HP. She made this all happen, and it was an idea. It was a brilliant discussion she had with one of the authors, and we made this happen in about less than 2 months.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
We have book signings tomorrow and Wednesday from 10:30 to 12. Tomorrow is the only day when all three of us will be together for the full time, so if you're still at the show. There just so happen to be a couple of books here. If you're not going to be here tomorrow, and if you wanted, and we even have a pen here, so Wayne Peterson, one of the co-authors, is here too, so we'll sign books that are here as long as they last if you're not going to be here tomorrow.
And that's in
but
the
don't lie to us, okay?
And that's in the HP booth. The book signing is
Yes,
in the
it is.
HP booth.
1825.
I want to again. I also want to thank the Printerverse for hosting us. Thank you very much, and for sharing with the good news with the world. And everybody, let's go. I'm going to steal a line from another CEO, industry CEO. Let's go make print great again. Hugely great.
Thank you, my darling.